A 24-minute interview. Draymond Green, Kevin Durant. This thing was incredible. Now, George, I do want to get to one specific soundbite that seems to be making headlines, but then what I want to do is kind of peel back the layers of the interview itself, because I thought you and I both found it to be a very compelling interview between Draymond Green and Kevin Durant. But where I want to start is with the kind of signature of the interview itself and the quote that has made quite a few headlines, which is essentially, if you remember 2018, the end of the run, we're wondering, is Kevin Durant possibly going to leave Golden State in the offseason? He has this dust-up with Draymond Green. The two of them addressed that issue in a 24-minute interview with Bleacher Report today.
For my own personal sanity, because I've been getting my kicked ever since you left. So just for my own personal sanity, how much did our argument against the Clippers drive you to ultimately lead the Warriors?
It wasn't the argument. It was the way that everybody, Steve Kerr, act like it didn't happen. Bob Myers and tried to just discipline you and think that would put the mask over everything. We had to get that all out. I don't think we did that, and we tried to dance around it. I just didn't like how all of that, just the vibe between all of that, it just made it weird to me. Like, we didn't show that, and that's what rubbed me the wrong way more than anything.
So really quick, George, it goes on to say they discuss a little bit more about Steve Kerr, about Bob Myers. First, just that initial reaction. You've been in locker rooms. I know there's been, personal stuff, professional stuff that goes on. Just your reaction to the guys saying it was really more not about the situation itself, but how it was managed how it was handled by management. They didn't get to the root of the cause. They kind of let it fester, and that's what Draymond Green and Kevin Durant are both saying now in hindsight led to the breakup of the Warriors.
Nah, fam, I'm not buying this at all. I'm not, and the reason why I'm not buying it is because these are two grown adults. These are two grown men, and Draymond Green in the interview said only me and KD could have fixed this. You didn't fix it.
Yes,
you didn't fix it. That means, but mind you, they're cool now. You saw what happened with the Olympic team after they were on IG Live together. They seemed very close. All of those things on the Olympic team. So something has transpired between then and now where they're back cool, right? So while Bob Myers and Steve Kerr probably did handle things incorrectly and probably did bear some responsibility in the situation, they also are not the people who are in the situation. Only Kevin Durant and Draymond Green could fix the situation. And truthfully, Draymond Green did need to apologize. And maybe not for his sentiment, but for the fact that he did it publicly. That may be the thing that he needed to apologize for, because if you call me out of my name out in the public, with the same energy that you put out there in the world, I'm going to need you to apologize with that same energy. I don't want it just in private. I want you to be like, yo, yeah, me and KD talks. And, it wasn't right for me to say that in front of everybody. That was messed up, blah, blah, blah. But we're going to handle the rest of it behind closed doors. And that's where they lost me there. Because I'm like, I'm not buying that, bro. I am not buying the fact that that you're going to try to pin this on your coaches when you were two grown men and you could have handled the situation better.
Well, and it's really funny because if you listen to the entire interview, which again is really good, we'll break down further details momentarily. But if you listen to the full interview, they just kind of both say, yeah, it was Bob Myers and Steve Kerr's fault. And then they don't really explain why. And Kevin Durant, who I thought was awesome in this interview, this is not a tear down Kevin Durant thing. It's actually
no way.
Yeah, I thought it was actually the opposite. I thought he was awesome, but he does this thing of, well, I watched The Last Dance, and there's the moment in The Last Dance where Scottie Pippen, doesn't take the last shot, and the whole team jumps on him, and I wanted my teammates to hold me accountable, and so I'm with you, George, in that it feels like it reminded me, and I don't have children, but it reminded me of two kids. They both screw up, and rather than blaming each other, they both broke the window, having a catch in the backyard. It's somehow mom and dad's fault. It's somehow the neighbor's fault. Somebody else, they were holding cigarettes for somebody else. Go ahead, George. I know you want to get in.
Well, I think that they also that Kevin Durant did make a decent point there where he brought up The Last Dance.
I agree, but that's not a Steve Kerr, Bob Myers thing. That's a locker room thing. Go ahead.
I think it was a combination of both, that the players in the locker room failed in the situation too, because they needed to be like, yo, Draymond, that was messed up, especially, and they may not have known it in that moment because there are heated things that go on, but after they see the way that it got blown up, you needed Klay Thompson and Steph Curry to come over and be like, hey, yo, that ain't it, fam. Sure. Or they may have, but not necessarily publicly in front of everybody else. They may have, but Draymond may have been bullheaded enough in that situation to not be able to let common sense get in the way of his argument. And sometimes when you get extremely passionate about something, that you care about something, he cares about the Warriors, that team. He was frustrated that KD wanted to leave, because he even said it, that he thought KD was already out the door, and that was really what the root of his anger was. And I think that that's the next evolution for us as people, is that a lot of times people just say, oh, I'm mad, I'm angry, I was pissed off, I did this. But in reality, what's the actual emotion behind that? Draymond Green's feelings were hurt. His feelings were hurt that this dude that they put so much time, energy, and effort with wanted to just walk out of the door, and he didn't feel like he was there. He felt shunned. He felt like that's what he was actually mad about. It wasn't anything else. It was that his feelings were hurt and that he was upset, and that's what needs to be acknowledged, and not so much, oh, well, I was just pissed in the situation. No, your feelings were hurt, Draymond.
100%. I want to transition to the bigger, the theme of the interview, and that was a few things. Is one, again, this soundbite, the sound that we just played of Kevin Durant, Draymond Green, that's the one that's making the headlines. But you and I both took the same thing out of the interview as a whole, and obviously, listen to the Doug Gottlieb show and listen to Fox Sports Radio. But when you have a moment, also check out this interview, solely because it was Kevin Durant, real, raw, uncut. Draymond Green did an excellent job asking the questions that we wanted to hear, and Kevin Durant basically answered every question that we would want answered of Kevin Durant. In terms of what's it like to be teammates with Kyrie Irving and James Harden, what was it like with Russell Westbrook in OKC, why did you leave OKC, why did you use the burner accounts? And what I'll say about this, George, is the interview as a whole, I think it opened up my eyes to something that I've mentioned many times here on the Fox Sports Radio airwaves, and that's that I have been so impressed with the evolution of Kevin Durant as a man. And he even talks about that, as well as, not having kids, not having a family, why his craft is still so important to him. But this was a guy that I don't want to do the armchair analysis. I know him better than he knows himself. That's not what I'm saying. But it was clear that he was a different dude when he got to Golden State. I don't think he was necessarily ready for a lot of the vitriol and anger that came with it, which he talks about in that interview. And now I see this guy. He's calm. He's withdrawn. He understands who he is. Yeah, I'll go after you on I'll go after you on Twitter, but I'm not using a burner account. I am who I am. You can respect me. You cannot respect me, but I am not going to change who I am. And I respect this version of Kevin Durant so much. I mean, even going back to the playoffs, when there was all sorts of issues, it seemed like he was kind of the voice of reason within that locker room when Kyrie was saying crazy stuff and he was stomping on the court and people were throwing bottles at him. I just have been so impressed with this evolution of Kevin Durant. And by the way, credit to Draymond Green for doing a heck of an interview to get that out of him.
Yeah, I thought that you had Kevin Durant and Draymond Green come off very, very well, right? Because people really enjoy when people are genuine and authentic. And it was there's so many people that call Kevin Durant thin skinned, they call him sensitive, they call him all these things. But after the interview, I was left more with, wow, this is a dude who's comfortable being Kevin Durant.
Agreed.
Maybe he wasn't comfortable with everything that came along with that 10 years ago, 5 years ago, whatever it is. But the guy that is standing in front of us right now, this dude is good in terms of like he's fine being him. He understands his place in the game. He understands what he has to prove, what he doesn't have to prove, and he knows what he wants. And I think that that's the most, like the best thing that people can take away from you when you do something is say, okay, this dude loves what he does, which, yeah, he loves ball. This dude loves everything that he's got going on. He appreciates it and he works hard. Like what else could you want out of a guy?
100%. And that was what stood out. And there was even a quote within there of, look, man, I don't talk politics. I don't talk religion. I don't talk anything other than ball. I am who I am. And you just have to, like, he didn't even say you have to respect who I am. He's like, I don't talk about my money. I don't talk about this. I just care about my craft. And so, we could put a button on this, George, but I just feel like this is a guy that, again, for those first 2-3 years, I mean, he was so beloved in Oklahoma City. You go back and there was that famous Mr. Unreliable headline that I think really shook him up. He goes to Golden State, and now you just see a guy that's comfortable in his own skin. And he even said, I'm evolving. I'm glad I don't have kids, because if I had kids, I'm so different now 10 years ago than I am today. And so I just thought it was a really cool insight into Kevin Durant. And as you said, I thought Draymond Green did a heck of a job asking the right questions and getting a lot out of him.
Oh, for sure. For sure. It was a good interview. And most of all, it was, think about this. It was compelling enough that I went and downloaded an app so I could watch it. Like that was and I think that was the biggest win out of the whole thing, is that if you are the company, because it was on Bleacher Report, if you created content that's compelling enough that you got people to go download an app the way they could listen to it, and now the next time Draymond Green puts out an interview,
yep,
I'm going to go listen.
Me
are
too.
you?
No, 100%.